In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make this cute sheared top. I promise you it's beginner friendly, so if you want to learn how to make it, just keep watching. If you're new to my channel, my name is Leslie. My channel is all about supplementation and sewing, so if either of those things interest you, please consider subscribing, joining my YouTube family, and hit the bell notification button to be notified every time I upload. Make sure to check my website out at sewpresscreate.com, and let's learn how to draft and sew this beautiful top. So all you're gonna need for this project is just some stretch thread. You can get this on Amazon, you can get it at Joann's, you can get it at Hobby Lobby, but I got mine on Amazon and it looks like this. It has some stretch and we're just gonna use this in our bobbin. So a little bit honestly goes a long way. You can get about, filling up one bobbin, you can get about 3 rows of shirring. And you're gonna need your fabric and your top thread, and make sure that your top thread is a coordinating thread that will go well, because that's what you're gonna see. Your shirring thread, you're not gonna see that from the outside. So you wanna make sure that whatever thread you're using on the outside blends in or matches it nicely.
We're going to start by taking our bust measurement, and mine is 34 inches. We're then going to multiply that by 1.5, which for me is 51 inches. Then we're going to add our seam allowance to that. I'm going to be using 1/2 inch seam allowance. You want to add your seam allowance on both sides. So that's 1 inch for me, which will equal 52 inches. Then we're going to figure out how long we want the top to be. I'm going to do 17 inches. Then you want to add your hem allowance, which is 1/2 inch. Then you want to add a 1/4 inch to that hem allowance, because you're going to be folding it over 1/4 inch and then the hem allowance. Then you want to add 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch for your top hem allowance. So you're going to have a top hem allowance and a bottom hem allowance. If you are doing 2 panels instead of 1 big panel, you're going to have to divide your measurement that you got earlier by 2 and then add seam allowance to that number. So then you would cut 2 panels at that width and then the length that you calculated earlier. For straps, you got to figure out how long you're going to want them. I'm going to do 15 inches. And I need 4 of them, so I'm putting that in parentheses. And then thickness, you want to make sure that whatever you pick, you're going to double that. So if you want it to be 1.5, it's going to be 3 inches. And then you want to add seam allowance to that on both sides. You want to take your straps, right sides together, and you want to clip them all the way across. You then want to grab your bodice, fold it a 1/4 inch, and then fold it a 1/2 inch and clip it all the way across. You want to repeat this for the top and bottom of your bodice piece. Then we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to top stitch those hems that we created. I'm going to be using my stitch in the ditch foot. I love this foot. It makes it so easy. It has a little metal guide that where my fabric will lay next to it. So I'm sewing from the wrong side because I think it's easier. You can sew it from the other side if you feel confident in that. And I just love, look, a consistent stitches, and it looks nice from the front as well. For other straps, we're going to start by sewing the short sides at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then once you're 1/2 inch from the corner, you're going to pivot, turn your fabric with your needle down, and sew all the way across the long side. Once you have done that, you're going to trim your seam allowance and the corner, and then you're going to flip it right side out. Once you kind of have it started, you can take something like a chopstick and kind of push it out gently without making a hole in your fabric, and then you can use that to poke out your corners. And then the raw edge, you can turn that inwards by a 1/4 inch and top stitch it closed. To wind our bobbin by hand, we're going to stick the thread through the hole, hold on to it a bit with one finger, and then we're going to gently wind it. We're not pulling the thread, we're just gently winding it until it is full. Once you kind of have started it, you can let go and then just keep winding it. If you're going to do it by machine, you put your bobbin where you would normally wind your bobbin. I have a big thread. So I'm going to put my spool on the side. You can put it on the small part. Then you're just going to thread it like you normally would to wind your bobbin thread. Hold on to it as you start off. Put your machine on the slowest setting and then press start. You can let go once it's established, and then you have a perfectly winded bobbin. To put the bobbin in your machine, you're going to put it how you normally would. Make sure the thread is caught in the tension disc. This is super important. Don't pull your thread. You can bring it up with the hand cranking it, but mine has a hard time doing that. So I just leave it caught in the tension disc. I put my bobbin cover on and then I just clip it. I don't pull it because it's going to bounce and get out those tension discs. I set my tension between an 8 and a 7 and then my stitch length to the longest length that my sewing machine can do, which is a 5 for me. And then we're ready to get started. So you can draw your lines beforehand. I'm kind of a wing it type person when it comes to sewing. So what I like to do is I want my lines to be about 1/2 inch apart. So what I do is I move my needle all the way to the left and I line up my presser foot with that top stitching that we created earlier for the hem. I line it up with that and then I just sew all the way across, making sure that my presser foot is lined up with that stitch line. Once I get to the end, I lift up my needle and my presser foot. I turn my fabric and I move my needle all the way to the right, and then I stitch with my presser foot, the left side of my presser foot lining up with that seam. The more you sew, the more you're going to see it scrunch up like it should. And make sure that as you're sewing now, every row you sew, you want to make sure you're pulling that fabric to lay flat. And you're just going to continue doing that for as many rows as you need. Once you have finished sewing, you just want to press your straps. And then we're going to get our bodice and we're going to do the magic of shirring. You're going to grab your iron and you're going to just steam over your bodice, and you'll notice as you're doing this, it's going to start shrinking down. Once you have done that, you're going to put your pieces right sides together and sew. You might just have one seam if you're doing one big one, or you have 2 seams. Clip it all the way across and take it to your sewing machine. You want to make sure that you put your settings back to how they were originally. You don't want to have the same settings that you're using for shirring. What I decided to do is to actually unstitch some of those stitches at the end. That way I can have a clean finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open these up and line them up. And then I'm going to sew, and I'm doing this for the top and bottom hem, opening up the stitches, lining them up, and then I'm going to sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way across. And what this does is that when you fold it over, you're going to have a nice finished edge. You don't got to worry about tucking in that serger toe. It's going to be nice. Top stitch it close. So once you have sewn it, you're just gonna take it to your serger and finish off those raw edges, or use an overcast stitch on your sewing machine. Now you can just clip your threads, your serger threads, and then just fold over that area and clip it and just top stitch it like we did before. And now that you have a nice clean seam. Now you just want to try on your shirred top, and you want to figure out where you want the straps to be, and you can use a pin or a safety pin and pin them where you want them to be. And then you want to take off the top and turn it wrong sides out, and then you're going to take your other 2 straps and just line them up with the front ones that you pinned and pin those to the back. And then you're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to sew right over that top stitch for the hem that we did earlier. That way that stitch is nicely concealed and you won't be able to see it. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and end of your strap to make it very secure.
All you have to do is just tie your straps and you have a cute shirred top. And this is a great beginner project. It's easy. It's a great introduction to shirring. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Hit the bell notification button to be notified every time I upload, and subscribe. Check out my website at sewpresscreate.com. I will have everything I used in this video linked down below, so make sure to check the description for any information. I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video next week. Bye guys.